Best Life 30, your 30-day journey to creating the best life possible for yourself. You can just watch this video, or if you want to sign up for the entire series for free and get the companion bonus worksheets that go with this video, check the link in the description below. All right, so today is day 18, and we're going to learn how to prioritize our time.
One of the lines from right out of the 5 a.m. Club is, one of the DNAs of legendary is longevity. So if you look at the Picassos, the Jean-Michel Basquiat, you look at the great sports champions, you look at the great history makers, they were much better at energy management than time management. And so we're in a war against distraction right now, and what we really have to do is optimize our energy. How do I do it? Well, I mean, I get to the morning routine, which the whole book is based on. But it's really quite powerful, because if you start your day with sweaty exercise, you're actually going to activate a pharmacy of mastery that exists in every human brain. I know you love the neuroscience. You're going to release BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. That's going to actually accelerate your processing. It's actually going to repair brain cells that have been damaged by stress. You're going to release the neurotransmitter dopamine, which is the fire neurotransmitter, which we all need as entrepreneurs and business builders and servants of humanity. Cortisol, the fear hormone, is highest in the morning, so exercising first thing in the morning is going to reduce that. I'm getting into my 20-20-20 formula, but I mention it because it is a way to maximize your energy.
So talk to us about the 20-20-20. I mean, you sort of started it there with the sweaty exercise, but what's the rest of that formula, which is pretty powerful? Sure.
So the new book is all about rising at 5 a.m., and that's because if you look at the great creatives and the great saints and the great humanitarians and the great titans of industry, many of them got up at 5 a.m. Even right now, you've got Tim Cook and you've got Howard Schultz, and it goes on and on. Before the sun rises is the time of least distraction. Before the sun rises, where you can build intimacy and fluency with what you want to stand for in your day. Before the sun rises, the luxury and tranquility of the early morning hours, you can do that deep inner work that will allow you to go out in the world and play at your best. So what the 20-20-20 formula is simply this. There's 3 pockets. The first pocket is move, 5 to 5:20. And you get into the sweaty exercise because, like I mentioned, it releases neurotransmitters, it reduces the cortisol, increases your metabolic rate, which gives you more energy. So now, and serotonin as well, which gives you joy. So now it's 5:20. Fundamentally, you feel different. You have energy. Your state is strong. You've got a fire in your belly, and you've accelerated your focus. 5:20 to 5:40 is the second pocket of the 20-20-20 formula, which is reflect. We live in a world where a lot of people are busy being busy, but what's the point of being busy around climbing the wrong Mount Everests? And so clarity is one of the DNAs of mastery. You know this. If you talk to the titans of industry and you talk to the people really getting traction around their ambition, these are people who have a monomaniacal focus on the few things that matter. They have an obsession bordering on a possession around the few priorities they want to build their life around. And so 5:20 to 5:40, the second pocket, you write in a journal. You meditate. You visualize. You do what I call in the book a blueprint for a beautiful day. Or you just sit in solitude and you think and you ponder and you reflect. And then the final pocket is 5:40 to 6 o'clock, and this is the victory hour. The final pocket is grow. But if you look at the greatest billionaires, I've coached many billionaires over the past 20 years. If you look at the greatest producers on the planet, these people have one thing in common. They are ridiculously curious. And no matter how much money they make and no matter how much impact they have, they maintain a white belt mentality. One of the keys to epic performance is a relentless commitment to daily growth. So that's the 20-20-20 formula that the 5 a.m. method is built around. And the premise is basically this: as you begin your day, so you handcraft the rest of your day. And if you have consistently great days, you're going to have consistently great weeks, quarters, year, and a lifetime. So your days are your life in miniature, and you got to get those mornings calibrated if you really want to win.
When you look at prioritizing, it really lives in, and I'm gonna say this word, and you're probably not gonna wanna hear it, but when I tell you it's a game changer, when you master, and just for now, begin to operate inside of time management. I used to resist time management because I'm a free spirit / people would call me a rebel back in the day, meaning I didn't want to be controlled. I'm a butterfly. I wanted to soar. I wanted to be free. Well, the reality is that when you manage your time more effectively, you actually create more freedom. That was a huge aha for me. Somebody's gonna BOL right now, like breakthrough out loud. Because when you time manage, meaning I'm gonna use better blocks of my time. Let me give you some examples for that. I'm gonna use better blocks of my time, meaning I'm only gonna go in my email 3 times a day. I go on my email about 9:30, between 9:20 and 9:40, I go on my email. I stay in my email for 30 minutes. I'll go back in my email about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I stay in my email again for about 30 minutes. I go back on my email one more time at 6 p.m. I stay in for about 30 minutes. That's it. I don't go in 19 times. I don't go in 20 times because 3 times a day gives me adequate time to see what's in there, see what's new, and act appropriately. Otherwise, it's throwing me off. I time block my day, about 90 minutes each time block to do a task. Even if a task only takes me 30 minutes, I time block 90 minutes because I get distracted. But when you time block your day and then you schedule each day, not every day looks the same. I have a time block for everything I need to do for 7 days out the week. Can you believe that in that time, I got more things done? You have to become comfortable with your no. My grandmother says, baby, she starts every sentence with baby. Baby, if you want your yes to have more value, you need to learn how to exercise your no. See, your yes might not have its value anymore. Why? Because you give it away too much. You give it to too many people. You give it away too often. You're always overcommitting, and then you feel drained and frustrated, and you don't have gratitude in your heart because you're overcommitted. Well, that all started with a yes that should have been a no, or should have been a I'd love to, but not now. And so number 1 is more effective time management that has your agenda in it, that has your priorities in it. Right now, your agenda is covered with everyone else's task. I heard once, if you don't have your agenda, then you're going to work for somebody else's agenda. And so number 1 is your time management with your agenda. And number 2 is operating, utilizing, and being comfortable in a no. And not an attitude no, not like a spank no, like no. Not that, just a no, not now. No, I would love to, but my plate is full. I'm free in 90 days. Just don't make, no energy, just not now. Don't be surprised when everyone comes to you. You're great, you're amazing, you're brilliant. Look at you, you're on this channel, so you know you're smart. You want a better life, you want an abundant life. Of course you're here. Of course everyone wants you. And your priorities matter.
What is time? How do you know when it's a long time, or how do you know when it's a short time? It's not because it's 10 minutes or 10 hours. How many been in 10 hours and time flew because you loved what you're doing, didn't have any sense of time whatsoever? How many have had that experience? Say aye. How many have had 10 minutes feel like 10 years you want to kill somebody to get out of the situation? So what is time? Time is emotion. Got to remember that. Time is emotion. What you're really managing is emotion. Another word for that would be meaning or fulfillment. Focus is power, but you got to take it. Take it back. Take back that power. And you got to know when you do have that focus, how to chunk it, how to group it so you're not overwhelmed. Let me show you how to make it simpler. When mass information is coming at you, you get overwhelmed. Most of us are great deletion creatures. We delete most of life. Right now, there are millions of things around you. You could be focusing on, thinking about, giving meanings to, making decisions about what to do. Millions. Right now, you could be focusing on the blood rushing through your left eardrum or the feeling of your skin against your body. But most of you delete that. You don't even think about clothing against your skin until I mention it, or your heartbeat. Most of the universe you've deleted because you go crazy if you try to think about it all. Because human beings have a limited amount they can focus on at one time. And most of your stress is because you're thinking about too many things at once. In fact, when people don't do things It's not because they can't. It's not even because they don't want to. It's because of the way they are focusing on what I call chunking things. When people don't follow through, here's what they do. I'll give you an example. Who here believes exercise is very important, but you don't exercise regularly? Let me see a show of hands. Raise your hand. More hands than most of us want to raise our hand, right? Now, who here really focuses, or I should say exercises regularly? Raise your hand. Regularly. Okay, great. Who here does not exercise regularly even though you believe it's important? Just be truthful. Okay, great. So let's see what the difference is here. A person who does not exercise regularly, I want you to raise your hand and I want you to tell me why you don't exercise regularly. Be truthful. Okay? Yes, sir. I don't have the time. Now, is that true? He even knows it's not true. He's going to answer you first. No. But it feels like he doesn't have the time because time is emotion. And he's got so many other things he is focused on getting results in that adding this to the list seems like a lot, right? And the other things are very important to him, like his business. I don't have the time. He has the time. What's the real reason he doesn't do it? Because of the way he thinks about exercise. When he focuses on what it would take to exercise, he does it very differently than someone who follows through. When you think about exercising, what's involved?
At the moment, about mile 14 of the London Marathon. Quite painful.
Okay, he starts thinking about, I got to get to mile 14 of the London Marathon, and that even the thought of trying to get to the 14th mile, much less the 25th mile, is like beyond my imagination right now. So he is what I call over-chunked. He's not thinking about what he wants. He's thinking about what's painful. You just saw a perfect example. He's not even thinking about victory or succeeding. So the chance of him following through on something that he associates major pain to, when he can do something else right now he can feel competent or successful at, his chances of following through are very limited. How many will follow that? Say I. His focus is on failure. His focus is on pain. That's why he isn't following through. Okay? He's also focused on the 14th mile of a marathon rather than today's workout. Which one seems more daunting to you? So when you think of what it, and here's also what he's thinking about. He's thinking about the process, not the outcome or result he wants. And when you think about what it's going to take to do something, usually it takes a lot and you're not going to want to do it. So he's over-chunked himself. He's trying to eat the whale whole without taking any smaller bites. And it seems too big for him, so he says, well, I'll do it when? Later. As my Australian friends would say, later. Right? And of course, the problem with doing it tomorrow is when you get to tomorrow, tomorrow is today, and tomorrow never comes. So, and you keep promising yourself. By the way, what does this do to you emotionally when you keep breaking your own promises with yourself? Or you keep failing to do things that you know are important? Does it increase your level of certainty and confidence? No. What it does is it erodes it. And when you erode confidence in one area, believe it or not, it affects the other areas too. Do you believe me on that? Don't believe me. What about your own life experience? Maybe not one area, but it starts to be multiple areas. It sure does. Another reason why somebody doesn't exercise or do anything is because they don't just chunk it too big, they chunk it in too many details. I'll give you a perfect example. So I asked somebody one time, I said, okay, how important is exercise? Oh, exercise is extremely important. Really? Okay, good. And tell me, why don't you exercise regularly? Well, I just don't have time. Okay, everybody gives that answer. That sounds wonderful. So tell me, though, don't tell me about how much time you don't have. Tell me this. When you think about exercising, what do you think about? Which is a way of saying, what do you focus on? And so this woman says to me, well, my gosh, I mean, what do you mean, what do I think about? Well, let's say I said to you, you got to start exercising, and I'm going to put a gun to the head of your children, and I will do very horrible things and hurt them badly if you don't exercise. Could you do it? Oh yeah, I could do it. You know, if some mafia person came here and said, I'm going to kill your children if you don't exercise every day, how many think you could find a way to exercise every day, no matter what your time constraints may be? So remember this. Remember this. Change is never a matter of ability. It's always a matter of motivation. I'll say that again. Change is never a matter of ability. It's always a matter of motivation or drive, having strong enough reasons. If you got a strong enough reason, you could figure out the time, couldn't you? So the biggest part of life and time management is knowing what you want and having enough reasons to follow through.
I don't know what percentage of human effort is spent in counterproductive activity. You know, I'm not an absolute cynic about that, but I mean, when I talk to undergraduates, I ask them, you know, how much time do you waste every day by your own reckoning? And it's somewhere between 5 and 8 hours. You know, it's a lot of time. Well, I usually walk the students through an economic analysis of that. I said, well, you know, why don't you value your time at $50 an hour and calculate for yourself just exactly what you're doing to your future by your inability to discipline yourself. It's worth thinking through. In any case, people do waste a lot of time, and they also act counterproductively a lot of the time.
There are a lot of things that are a waste of time. You know, when you think about your life, I think I often tell people that I work with, if you can get, because people have very high standards for how they want their work life to be, and I said, look, if you can get your work life to be where you enjoy half of it, that is amazing. Because very few people ever achieve that. Because the truth is, everything comes with overhead. That's reality. Everything comes with pieces that you don't like. You could be a Supreme Court justice, and there's still going to be pieces of your job you don't like. You can be a university professor, and it's still going to be, you have to go to committee meetings, and you have to do things. You know, every job comes with pieces you don't like. And we need to say, that's part of it. And not resent those pieces, or try not to, but also try to minimize them. I tell senior executives, you should have the least stress. You know, there's this weird, I think, false idea that CEOs, I'm a CEO, there's this false idea that CEOs are under the most stress. Well, I look at that, I'm like, why? You're in charge. Why don't you delegate the stress? It's your choice. And so you have to figure out how to set up your life in such a way that you can minimize the things. And I find people don't dislike hard work. What people dislike is being out of control. Like, they can't control their life. They can't control their environment. This happens to me when I get overscheduled. I hate being overscheduled. I want some time to be able to think and free myself. We all have the same amount of time in the world. Nobody has more time than anybody else. And when you become a very successful person, one of the things, you start to get overscheduled. You have this event. You had to agree to do this. And maybe last night you were like, why did I agree to do this? I have to go on stage tomorrow. I wish I were really with my family. And, you know, or I hope maybe not this case. Let's say that you like this one. But in general, that kind of thing happens. And so you have to guard your time and try to stay a little bit flexible. So that's, for me, it's not a waste of time, but I like to have some freedom of movement rather than having every minute of every day scheduled.
You need to make fewer decisions. Fewer decisions. Why? Well, as we know from neuroscience, and we know from productivity studies, that the more decisions that we actually make, the more our brain becomes fatigued, right? The more decisions that we make, the more we utilize the glucose that's really fueling our willpower, that's fueling our ability to make more decisions and higher quality decisions. Matter of fact, the more decisions that you tend to make, the less effective you're going to be over the long term, because you're going to utilize your ability and your resources and your brain's power, literally your willpower, will go out the window. So you want to minimize the number of decisions you are making. How do you do that? Well, here's some simple things. One, stop browsing. You know, I know maybe you found me because you were browsing somewhere, and I hope you make me part of your focus on your personal development, that I'm a purposeful part of your life. But I can tell you, overall, browsing completely wipes out your focus and your willpower. Even all these little things you're focusing on are utilizing all your brain's resources. And over a period of time, when you stop browsing and you go back to focusing on something, guess what? You tend not to be able to focus on one thing and get things done. You start multitasking and doing lots of things, but where your work isn't really focused, nothing gets accomplished. So what happens is your brain is fatigued. Guess what happens when your brain is fatigued? You find yourself sitting with a bag of potato chips, and what do when you have the remote control? You're just flipping randomly through things. Do you ever notice that? Meaning it's easier to become distracted the more distracted you are. Meaning the more that you aren't focusing on one thing at a time, the more problem you're gonna have later on to complete one thing at a time. And I know that makes sense, but here's this simple solution if you missed it. Stop browsing so much. All those browsing, all those tweets that you're reading, all those news feeds that you're reading, guess what? Every time you look at them, guess what your mind has to do? It has to make a decision, pay attention or not pay attention. And that decision is costing you focal power and resources later on, even if you don't know it.
How can people allocate a usable amount of time to things that they're passionate about, but that are ultimately going to take a long time to do? How do they keep that from being overwhelming? How do they make sure that they have success so they're not discouraged? Do you encourage people to think of their life in a year chunk, in smaller chunks?
So if it's a big project like writing a book, you want to say in that year-end holiday letter that you wrote a book, well, then you can start breaking it down and putting things related to that on each week's priority list, right? So maybe this week you think, well, what step could I take toward doing that? Well, I'm going to write, just what is the thesis of my book? All right, I did that. Great. That's all I have to do. All right, the next week I'm going to write maybe a couple chapters I think could be in that. Great, you've done it. The next week you're going to start writing little outlines in each of those chapters. Okay, you've done that. Moving forward. You don't want to overwhelm yourself. You don't want to bite off more than you can chew, but if you are writing 1,500 words a week for the rest of the year, you're going to have a book at the end of it, and not a short one, actually. So it's these little things done repeatedly. If you only, set yourself a very small goal, but you meet it, and then you just keep going, you can do amazing things.
Think of this for a moment. Do you know that every living soul gets exactly the same amount of time? Exactly the same amount of time. Figure it out. You get all there is. A hobo sleeping under a bridge or on a park bench that has no material possessions, none, does nothing of any constructive nature. That person gets exactly the same amount of time as the most productive industrialist in the world. We all get exactly the same amount of time. So it's what we do with the time that makes a difference. Now, I want you to think of the number of time management programs. Almost everyone under the sun has time management programs. In fact, I made one time, spent a lot of money on it. And then I found out it was a dumb waste of time and money. Do you know why? Time can't be managed. I was having breakfast with Earl Nightingale one morning. It was downtown Chicago, and I was going with him on a speaking engagement, and it was early in the morning. He said, "Do you want to meet for breakfast?" Whenever Earl Nightingale said, "Do you want to meet me?" I was there, and I always had some well-prepared questions. And I remember asking him, I said, "Earl, how did you learn how to master time management?" We're having breakfast. I can still hear his fork hit the plate. He said, "What the hell are you talking about?" He said, "I've never mastered time management. Nobody masters time management." He said, "Time can't be managed." He said, "I merely manage activity." And he took a little card out of his pocket. And he said, "Every night before I go to bed, I write down 6 most important things I have to do tomorrow. These are goal-achieving activities. And when I wake up, that's what I start working on. And if I don't get them all done, I'll add them to tomorrow's list." He said, "You should have about 6. Now, if I have 3 that I didn't get done today, that doesn't mean I have 9 for tomorrow, like 6 plus these 3. Those 3 become part of the 6 you have to do the next day." When you wake up, you give all your conscious attention to do those things. See, you cannot manage time, but you can manage activity. You can manage your activities. Make certain that what you're doing really makes a difference. Make certain that you're spending your time on activities that are productive, that are taking you in the direction of your goal.
Let's say you're the most ultra-motivated guy in the world. When that alarm clock goes off, there's at least 50% of the time where you just, that soft little pillow is just caressing your head and you want to stay there. And it takes discipline to go, nope, I'm going to get up out of this bed and I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. And that discipline that you have at that moment, you win that fight. That's a big victory. And then that pattern will carry out throughout the day. Because once you're up, well, now that I'm up, I might as well go work out because I'm already up and I feel good that I got up out of bed and I won that battle. Let me go win another battle. I'm going to go get it done. And then when you show up at the office and there's someone that's got a big box of donuts that they're giving away for free, by the way. So they're just sitting there. It's almost like an insult not to take them. But when you've already gotten up early, you had the discipline there, you already worked out, you had the discipline there, and now you see the box of donuts, you're like, no, I'm not going to eat the donuts. No donuts. You're not going to do it. And that discipline carries on throughout the day. So now you take that and you expand that out over a week and a month, and you end up with more discipline. And it starts with that simple act of getting up and getting out of bed in the morning. We all want freedom, right? We all want to have freedom. We want to have financial freedom. We want to have more free time. We want to have physical freedom. That's what we want. Everyone wants freedom, of course. But if you want to have freedom in your life, the way to get to freedom is through discipline. That's how you get there. So if you want to be financially free, you have to have financial discipline. You have to save your money. You have to work hard to earn more money. You have to not buy stupid things that you don't actually need, right? You need to save that money and invest it properly. All that takes discipline. And if you have that kind of discipline, you'll end up with more freedom. If you want to have more free time, everybody wants more free time. But if you want more free time, how are you going to get it? You have to have more disciplined time management.
Where do you find that shift of like, I need to get off of this because I'll be spending time with like my fiance or with my family. It pops into my head, oh my gosh, I need to text this person. I forgot I needed to call and get this order fixed. How do you find that shift to just say, you know what, I'm spending time with my family and I'll do it tomorrow, but not like in a procrastinating way?
It's an excellent question. I think if you're present to whether or not you're kind of in the zone of time where it's cool to be fluid, you're kind of with the family, you're also sort of present on your phone, that's cool. If you've decided that because my kids are starting to complain or my fiance's starting to complain that I'm always like this, then you got to honor that if you're going to say I'm putting down the phone between 7 and 9 o'clock tonight, and I'm actually just going to be present with you, you've got to honor it. So what I will do is I'll just jot a note to myself. So instead of picking up the phone, I'll just jot a note down. You've had the experience, right, where you got to like be at a meeting at the school, or you have to catch a plane, or you've got a doctor's appointment. And have you ever noticed that when you've got an anchor like that, your whole day condenses and you're more productive because you've got this deadline? And that's called Parkinson's law. So Parkinson's law, it's a research-backed fact that when you have work to do, it will expand to the amount of time that you have to do it in. So if you have 20 minutes to make a call, how long will it take you? If you have 2 weeks to make it, how long will it take you? 2 weeks. Correct. So if you, every day, no phone in your room, you set that one priority that matters to you. If you got time to kind of inch it forward just a little bit, great. You've already made progress. You're done for the day. Then you look at your phone. You also set a quitting time right then and there. The majority of days you'll honor it. And that quitting time means, for me, it means I'm not on my phone. And everybody that works for me knows if there's an emergency or if we have to do something, they'll call me. So that helps a lot.
My challenge in our generation is that gradually through entertainment, through television, through media, through every way possible, we are living in a generation of the dumbing down of ideas. Because we have traded effectiveness for busyness. Statistics say, yeah, somebody ought to clap on that. We are busier than any other generation we have seen in the last 300 to 400 years. We are so busy. We are busier than a one-arm wallpaper hanger. We're just busy. You'll get it later. Don't worry about it. It'll hit you in a minute. We are just as busy as we can be, and we think because we're busy, we're effective. But I want you to challenge your schedule for a minute and ask yourself, are you really being effective? Or is your life cluttered with all kinds of stuff that demands you and drains you and taxes you and stops you from being your highest and best self? And are you substituting busyness and all the chaos that goes along with busyness from being effective? Let me tell you, a bunch of scientists got together and they began to do some research, and they began to determine that 80% of the things we do are busy things that we do in an area that is not effective, that the average person only spends 20% of their time doing the thing that they are really gifted at, created at, passionate about, excited to do, and the rest of it is all the dismal, dumb stuff that we all have to do in order to survive. Just crazy stuff that we're doing. Wonder what would happen if we would go from doing 80% of things that are busy but not effective and 20% of the things that are really effective if we would switch those numbers around and only give 20% of our time to the things that we have to do and 80% of our time to the thing that we were created to do. Wonder what would happen to your life. Now think about it a minute. There's a lot of things you could take from me and I could make it. You could take my suit, I got another one. You could take my car, I could get another one. You could take my house, I could get another house. But when you take my time, you have taken something from me that is totally irreplaceable. We take all kind of classes for money management. We know how to manage our money. We know how to repair our houses. We're working on our hair and our bodies and all of this kind of stuff. We do everything except the most important thing is to value our time. It takes time to be creative. You were meant to be creative. You were created in the likeness and the image of a creator, and in that likeness and in that image, you have creativity. If you had time, you would be creative. But in the absence of time and with busyness and clutter and the phone going beep, 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 you all got music playing on your phone, all kinds of stuff. And no matter what kind of song you put on it, after a while you hate to hear it, because every time you hear that sound, you know it's somebody else wanting something else from you that's taking you away from what you are gifted and creative to do.
The question that was asked was, how do we maximize the use of our time? Here's my answer. And I learned this from Dr. Daniel Siegel, a UCLA psychotherapist. He says, divide the time in 24 hours into the following sections. So sleep time, meditation time, exercise time, relationship time, downtime, creative and play time, focused work time, and when you eat. And when you're doing each of these things, then just do those things. Don't do anything else. I thought that was very brilliant, and I've been doing this now for a number of years. I sleep at least 6 to 8 hours a day. I meditate early in the morning for about 1.5 hours. I go to the gym after that. I walk between 5 to 10 miles a day. I work from about 9 o'clock to 12 noon. Then I take a full hour for a mindful lunch. I take a 20-minute walk after lunch. Then I start working again in the afternoon around 1 o'clock or so, 1:30, 2 even. And then I do a short meditation at 4:30 in the evening, 5 o'clock. And I have an early supper around 6, and I'm in bed by about 10. Now, when I'm doing this daily routine, then I feel that my rhythms are in order. They're connected to the rhythms of the cosmos. And when I'm speaking to someone, I'm present with them. I don't check my iPhone or my handheld device at the same time, because the cortical brain can only do one thing at a time. So, of course, the autonomic nervous system can do many things at a time. Do one thing, do it mindfully, and do it well. Pursue excellence and ignore success. Stay detached.